This is George Dionne with Metal Express Radio, and I'm here with Gerry Nestler of the band Philm. How you doing, Gerry?
Hey, great. Thanks, George.
Awesome. If I knew absolutely nothing about the band Philm, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Ooh, gee. It's heavy. It's kind of, Pancho Tomaselli calls it a new kind of heavy.
Mhm.
It's very youthful, but it's at the same time very rooted. It has lineage and into to the, I guess, long lines there. But and it's very intense.
Eclectic is a word that I would use personally. It's definitely eclectic.
Yeah, it's eclectic. Okay, yeah. It's difficult for me because I don't see things on those terms, but
Right.
but yeah, it'd be eclectic.
You have a new album coming out called Time Burner on February 19th, 2021. Are you going to be releasing any singles? I haven't seen anything out there yet.
No, not as of yet that I'm aware of. We probably will be working on releasing a single. Probably for, well, I won't say which song, but there is right now, Spanish Flowers is out right now, which is our video, I guess. It's an animated video, and that can be seen, LA Film Shorts. It's on their YouTube.
Yep.
And yeah, so there's that. And yeah, we'll probably, put out a single at some point.
So let's talk a little bit about Spanish Flowers. It's sort of like a mini short film, not so much a video. Was that something that you put together, or somebody came to you and said, hey, I'd like to do this?
Well, that was actually Pancho's brother, Ness Tomaselli. And, he was, whenever we recorded the song, he got to hear it and he was really, blown away by it. And he's a metalhead, full on Iron Maiden guy. And he was really, it took them 9 months, him and his team to create that work, and they did it, just out of love for the music and, and honing their craft. And so, it ended up, they put it out last year and started submitting it. And it's got like, I think 9 or 10 laurels already on that thing. So, it's got some great attention to it.
Awesome. Now, it's been about 6 years or so since the last Philm album. Obviously, there's been some issues there. Has this album been done for a certain amount of time, or was this done over the last year or so?
Yeah, it's been done for quite a while. It's been sitting. We recorded most of it throughout 2016, and it was done. It was by sometime in 2017. I don't know the exact date, but it was probably early 2017 or maybe even 2016. The album was done. Yeah, it was. I did a solo record. Gerry Paul Nestler. It's called Mama's Child, and it was me mostly on the piano. Sort of people call it my jazz album, but I did that one. Actually started that one before the Philm album. And the Philm album was done before that one was done. We did it really fast. The Philm record was done very swiftly.
Right. So there's no way to talk about Philm without talking about, Dave Lombardo and how, things went down and he left and stuff like that.
That's impossible.
So let's try to talk a little bit about it. What did you had to have, I'm assuming that in order to get this Philm album out, that there was some issues in retaining the name and retaining music or something like that. What were some of the things you had to go through to retain everything?
Well, we have to go through a lot, actually. I'm still trying to retain things, There's a story. I just, Metal Hammer, for the first time, Metal Hammer had just asked me that question, how and why, Dave Lombardo left Philm. And now, it's been 5 years since he went to press, stating that he ended the group. And you know, the thing is that, let me just say that, I really love the guy. We all had a very loving friendship and bond in the group, very supportive of each other and all of our endeavors. It was very much a brotherly band. That's the way this band worked. And, there was obstacles to overcome after he, I guess, left the group. And I don't really know why, but there's a Facebook page that that I was removed. That's actually, I created that Facebook page for us, and I was taken out. So I still don't have the Facebook page, but the name of the band, I created the name of the group. So a lot of this, keeping in mind that film was the only thing that I was doing. The other
Right.
guy, Pancho and Dave, they had numerous things, which, we supported each other with, full on. And so this album too, if I may say, to keep continuing with this, is really what, unfinished business, what we were doing with Dave. And we did these shows in New York with at John Zorn's The Stone, which were tremendous shows. We started doing this stuff on a cruise ship in Brazil with Sepultura when we played this, on this cruise ship with them. And there was a piano bar. So, we got on the piano, bass, and drums, and we just started playing for, over an hour. And there was a great audience, and it was very successful. It was really opened up a whole new thing for us. And so when shortly after that same month, we were in New York, and Dave had booked, the Stone, because Dave has ties with John Zorn, working with John. And John is a terrific, it's John Zorn. He's anybody that knows anything about John Zorn knows what I'm talking about. And so we did these shows, and they were they were brilliant. And so and we recorded a session over at East Side Studios or Recorders with Mark Uselli, and Uselli mixed all the tracks, and they're beautiful. It was an amazing achievement. I prepared everything on board the cruise ship prior to our recording. It was about 20 different pieces, and so we were looking forward to that coming out. The fact that it hadn't been released, although we were planning on releasing it under the Film Noir name. That's why the Time Burner record contains 3 pieces that are piano, bass, and drums. This is the reason why. The other pieces on the record, the heavier pieces, so at least 4 of them were things ideas and riffs that Pancho and me created and played with Dave. Sometimes we'd sneak them in on shows, and
Right.
we played 2 jams on them. And then there's some new pieces like Spanish Flowers. That was completely, we could have never have done that before with Dave. This was completely when Anderson came into the band. Yeah, there was definitely, back to the obstacles. Yeah, there was quite a few things that needed to be cleared up, including an LLC corporation, just all kinds of things.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So you also changed record labels. You're now on Meadowville Records and not on Mike Patton's label anymore.
Well, we also, on Fire from the Evening Sun was on UDR, and UDR,
okay.
Yeah, and UDR is now Silver Lining Music, but
Mm-hmm.
Silver Lining was interested, but not so much. And Meadowville, they were interested in putting it out, so we went with them for sure.
Awesome. Have you talked to Lombardo ever since? It's been a long passage of time, no?
Yeah, none of us have spoken since our initial meeting, or our last meeting, not initial. It was our last meeting. It was November 9th, 2015, where we had the meeting. And, we never discussed ending the group. That's for sure. It was a complete surprise to me when he, in January, that he stated that he ended the group. I mean, I was like, really? I was under the impression that we had a lot of work in front of us too, as far as cleaning up. We did have an LLC together, so there was business still to take care of.
You've kept busy since the band was defunct for a little while. You reunited with your old band Civil Defiance last year.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you guys did a bunch of live shows and you put out a single. Are you expecting to do anything more with these guys?
Yeah, I would think so. The guitarist had passed, though, Mike Kenny. That was kind of a big blow to us. He died this year. And we were scheduled too for a Viper Room show early this year, right before, the pandemic. So we're kind of sitting on some recordings. Chris Garcia from the Mothers of Invention came into the picture. This year happens to be the 25th anniversary of the Fishers for Souls album, which I was notified by Rock Hard magazine that this was, our silver anniversary, and that it's considered one of the top 500 albums ever made of all time by Rock Hard. So quite possibly we're trying to achieve maybe another Fishers for Souls next time around. Something.
Yeah.
Really great.
Exactly. And you mentioned your solo album earlier that was released in 2018. Are you working on anything towards another one?
I would love to. I would love to do another piano album. Right now, though, I've got a lot of, heavier stuff that, I've been working on or looking forward to releasing. So, including Civil Defiance. So,
okay.
Not yet for any of the piano. I think that the piano record, the Mama's Child record, still has, a long ways to go. I mean, it's a sleeper. It still needs time to really even sink in, that album.
Right. Okay. So, your father was a photographer, or was an artist, Frank Nestler. Do you think that you kind of inherited kind of his artistic sensibilities and stuff? Because, between your three projects, there's some similarity, but there's a lot of diversity.
Yeah. Well, he was a photographer and a painter too. Both my parents were artists. I grew up in an artist, community kind of. Well, pretty much, yeah. There's a lot of artists up there in Mount Washington, which is Northeast LA. I grew up next door to the Self-Realization of Fellowship, which was the home of Paramahansa Yogananda, and George Harrison, Ravi Shankar, Elvis Presley would be up there.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a magical place. My godfather was also a California watercolor. There was a lot going on. I was exposed to a lot from a very young age till it was happening. And my dad worked production. He was a production manager at an advertising agency. So I was always around that stuff. The music, it was only my mother's idea that we were trained as young children. But yeah, the art part of it, it's stuck with me for sure. It's a big part of my environment growing up, other than being next door to, the monastery or the SRF.
Right. So who were some of your musical influences?
Well, from when growing up, let's start with, as you're a little kid and you got that television on and it's night, I mean, we moved up there in 1968 from Hollywood, and the Monkees were always on.
I love the Monkees.
Yeah, the Monkees were always. You click on that television,
Yep.
and I up there in Mount Washington, there's not a whole lot of city up there, and so there's the monastery, and it was pretty open. So as a small child, the television was what you did, and the Monkees had a great. You'd see that, and it's like, oh, this is cool. Four guys, they have a band, and they make music. They seem to be. You can't really get their jokes as a small kid, but they seem to know something about something that you don't know about.
Right.
And the music was really great. It's the Wrecking Crew. It's all that great stuff. And my older sister, and the older kids, they were, it was always the Stones and that sort of stuff. Late 60s, but those classical music was around, and jazz, so that kind of played in a lot. But later, as you get older, they introduced this new television show too, the Partridge Family,
right?
And on the weekend, and so David Cassidy comes around, and I'm still a very small child at this this age, and you also have a Soul Train, and American Bandstand is on. I wasn't quite, I'm still like 5-6 years old, so I'm not old enough yet to watch the midnight special in the evenings or anything like that. That wasn't until later, when SNL came out, and Don Kirshner's rock concert and all that. But later, growing up, as I was growing up, musical instruments and people playing electric music, became very popular. Me just ditching school, go out at night, seeing bands, backyard parties, the whole bit, bands like Van Halen in the LA area, Quiet Riot, White Sister. There's just so many groups.
Oh, it's another band I love, White Sister.
Oh, White Sister, yeah. It was a yeah, White Sister. There was the LA had a music scene, I guess,
Yeah.
And so heavy music or hard rock or whatever, was always present, and
Yep.
and later, post Van Halen, as we entered the 80s, and post Ramones too, when we had this stuff, you had the groups like the Germs, punk, started. I remember listening to Rodney on the Rock all the time, and I first heard the Germs there, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is like, what is this?
Right.
And so you still had, the I guess there are dinosaur bands by that time, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, but those groups, emanated, or, especially Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, those two were what, as I was growing up, your friends would call metal, heavy metal,
Right.
And it was a darker thing that maybe even mysticism involved, in different ways between the two groups. And you had in 1972, or I think it was early 70s, sometime The Exorcist ends up coming up, this movie, and it's post Manson murders, and
Right.
In my area itself, we had what they called the Hillside Strangler. The first body was dumped maybe 3 blocks from my house, And in the 70s, it was, you know, the end of the Vietnam War, Nixon, and it just it was just this something was in the air around that time, and the heavy music, meaning mostly Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, were sort of, that's where I draw the roots of all this from. You know, that's where
Yep.
everything comes from. And when punk started, getting back to the germs and all that, you know, and people started playing a little bit more aggressively or recklessly, I would call it, more reckless. It was so appealing, you know, as a young teenager. And it was different from playing all your notes correctly and
yeah.
you know, it was more about letting it out. You wanted to, you know, and it's always been, even you know, the Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, about rebellion. You know, it's always been about this rebellion and individuality and really expressing yourself, you know, and which was so different from, you know, it was counterculture, it was underground, it wasn't part of the mainstream, you know.
Sure.
And so it was a voice or something as youth that, you know, I remember being in high school, I was, you know, very outcast, you know, and you know, you draw into the music at a very young age because, you know, it's kind of like how skaters find you know, they find their souls in skating, you know, or with their groups and friends.
Yep.
You know, so it's kind of like that.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, man. I enjoyed the album. I hope it does well for you.
Thank you, man. Take care,
All right.
man.
Take care, man.